In a sudden political twist in Tripura, the BJP appointed Dr Manik Saha as the new Chief Minister of the state, replacing Chief Minister Biplab Deb just a year ahead of the assembly polls. After a hurriedly called BJP legislative party meeting, Mr Deb announced Mr Saha's name and said that he would extend cooperation to the new Chief Minister. Biplab Deb took to Twitter to congratulate his successor and said that Tripura will prosper under Prime Minister Modi's vision and leadership. I was a common worker of the party and I will continue to be so, Mr Saha told reporters after being named the next Chief Minister. Biplab Deb, meanwhile referring to his future, said that the party wants him to work to strengthen the organization. But Biplab Deb is not the only BJP Chief Minister to have resigned a year before the polls. In 2021, BJP ruled Uttarakhand, Gujarat and Karnataka witnesses such leadership changes.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी श्री विप्लव देव जी की पार्टी की संगठनात्मक गतिविधियों में भूमिका बढ़ाने के लिए उनके पार्टी संगठन की गतिविधियों में उनकी सेवाओं का उपयोग करने के लिए आगे उनके मार्ग को प्रशस्त करेगी और इसलिए आज मुख्यमंत्री विप्लव देव जी ने मुख्यमंत्री के नाते पद से त्यागपत्र माननीय राज्यपाल जी को सौंपा है.
I'm not surprised. We've been hearing this whispering campaign for the last 6 to 7 months that there may be a change in guard in the BJP. I just want to ask one thing to the BJP. How will they go into the 2023 election saying that they've had 5 years of successful governance when they've removed the Chief Minister in the 4th year for some unknown reason? And I think that in the coming days you will see that there will be more fissures within the BJP. We are very confident if the elections are held tomorrow, we are ready to take on any political party.
A very interesting turn of events as far as the BJP is concerned. This is the 4th state where they have performed this experiment. First Uttarakhand, Karnataka, Gujarat and now in Tripura where the Chief Minister has been changed mid-term. In Uttarakhand, in fact, 2 chief ministers were changed. They reaped some political dividends also where the BJP was able to repeat itself. But in Tripura, it's interesting that Mr. Biplab Deb has basically resigned from his position and almost swiftly Dr. Saha has been announced the new chief minister. We'll come to Dr. Saha in a bit, but as far as Biplab Deb is concerned, last Thursday, he was in the national capital. He met Amit Shah as well as JP Nadda and the central leadership told him to concentrate more on strengthening the party. Now, I don't know whether this was a message which was delivered to him and he got that message, loud and clear back on Thursday, but certainly on a Saturday, it seems that a picture is a lot clearer with what the central leadership meant. So, the stamp or the signing off happened in Delhi on Thursday. Obviously, we've spoken about how there was infighting. 3 BJP MLAs had quit. There was a new competitor for the BJP in Tripura in the Trinamool Congress, so they had to appear battle ready. Now, as far as the choice of Dr. Manik Saha is concerned, interesting choice because only last month he was made the Rajya Sabha MP from the Bharatiya Janata Party. He's also the Tripura president of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He's a tall and trusted leader. In fact, this morning when the central observers Bhupen Yadav and Vinod Taude reached Agartala, he was there to greet them also. So in sheer body language terms and visuals, it was very clear which way the wind is blowing as far as leadership in Tripura is concerned. So for the next 1 year, the state is going to be under his leadership and he will have to exhibit and exude that confidence in the leaders of the BJP to be able to help the BJP win Tripura again, because that seems to be the strategy. It has worked in Uttarakhand. The BJP hopes it will work in Gujarat. And one more important point over here is how perhaps the Karnataka Chief Minister, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister and the Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister must be thinking whether they could also be meeting the same fate or not, because eventually these states are also going to polls.
And Sunil Jakhar, senior Congress leader, former chief of its Punjab unit, quit the party on Saturday, weeks after he was issued a show-cause notice by the leadership over his criticism of the former Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi. Goodbye and good luck, Congress, Mr. Jakhar said in a Facebook Live video after scathing criticism of former party colleagues who led the action against him. His remarks come at a time when the Congress leadership is meeting in Udaipur in a desperate attempt to put its house in order to take on the BJP.
तो ये निर्णय तो आपको लेने पड़ेंगे। सोनिया जी, मेरे से, राहुल जी से मेरा ये निवेदन है कि हो सकता है आने वाले उत्तराधिकारी वही होंगे, और वो चाहे मेरी किसी से बने ना बने, मुझे लोग गलत कहेंगे, कांग्रेस पार्टी आपके, राहुल जी और आपके नाम के गांधी परिवार के बिना नहीं चल पाएगी। 60 बन जाएंगी, 60 नहीं तो कम से कम हर एक सूबे में अपनी अलग कांग्रेस होगी। आपका होना जरूरी है, आप लोगों का इस पार्टी का एक सशक्त अपोजिशन के लिए होना जरूरी है, परंतु ये तब तक ही जरूरी है कि आप अपने अच्छे बुरे को पहचानें। ये प्रशांत किशोर जी नहीं बता पाएंगे आपको, कोई आपको सुनील कानूनगोलू है उसको वो नहीं बता पाएगा। दिस इज अ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द बॉस हिमसेल्फ।
Now, citing a threat to food security, the Modi government has prohibited the export of wheat. According to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the decision was taken in view of the sudden spike in global prices of wheat arising out of various factors. But significantly, this order comes 2 days after the government decided to send trade delegations to a number of countries to explore possibilities of the export of wheat.
A U-turn in just 2 days. On 12th May, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal announced a 10 million ton target for export and today a ban on export of wheat by his ministry. The decision, though, the government says, is not because of shortage but an attempt to control rising domestic prices.
पिछले साल के मुकाबले सिर्फ करीब 40 लाख मीट्रिक टन का अनुमान है कम हुआ है, और ये एस्टिमेट्स होते हैं। मार्केट जो है स्पेकुलेशन करती है और उस स्पेकुलेशन के बेसिस पे प्राइसेस पुश हो रहे हैं।
कितने दिनों में हम देखेंगे?
एक हफ्ते के अंदर।
The opposition says the decision is not good for farmers.
Banning export of wheat is an anti-farmer measure. It deprives the farmer of reaping the benefit of higher export prices.
अब यदि बाजार में कहीं गेहूं के रेट कम हो गए तो वहाँ में हमें भी असर पड़े। अब हम ना इतने के रहे ना उतने के रहे, सरकार पैसा दे नहीं रही, बाजार में यदि बेच रहे हैं तो उतने भी रेट कम हो जाए तो ऐसे ही मर गए हम तो।
Commission agents who purchase grain from farmers and sell to exporters are worried.
सरकार की तरफ से आश्वासन आ रहे थे, आप मीडिया में देख सकते हो, सरकार की तरफ से पूरी तरह से आश्वासन था कि किसानों की आय को बढ़ाया जाएगा, कि किसान इस माल को स्टॉक करें ताकि सीजन के बाद जब सरकार इसको एक्सपोर्ट करेगी, प्राइवेट व्यापारी हैं जो इसको एक्सपोर्ट करेंगे, तब इसका दाम बढ़ेगा। ये सरकार की पॉलिसी थी और राज्य सरकार ने एकदम बिल्कुल रात को एक निर्णय ले लिया कि एक्सपोर्ट को बंद कर दिया है।
Wheat production in 2021-22 was 1095 LMT. Of this, 72.15 LMT, that is 6.5%, was exported. In 2022-23, wheat production is estimated to be 1050 LMT. Of this, 45 LMT is contracted to be exported, which is 4.28%. So this year, wheat export will go down by 2%. The G7 too has taken note of the ban.
Indians said that grain exports would be banned. Would this something that will make the crisis even worse? And it makes it very clear how serious this crisis is. It's a question here of preventing famine. We want to prevent that from occurring not just in a couple of months, but we can see the effects of this already today.
The export ban on wheat appears to be a knee-jerk reaction, and it has disappointed farmers and traders who are expecting better price for their wheat stock. And it has to be seen whether the export ban will help in controlling the rising price of wheat in the domestic market. With Mohammad Ghazali, Osama Shah for NDTV.
Meanwhile, several states in India are reeling under scorching heat, and farmers of the Vidarbha region in Maharashtra have been hit by a double whammy of a heat wave, even as there's continuous load shedding of electricity and continuous power cuts. As a result, several crops have been damaged, including the famous Nagpur oranges.
The scorching sun, cracked soil, the impact of 45-degree heat in Vidarbha. Farmers have also taken a big hit with standing crops drying up. Water pumps are of no use due to load shedding. Gaurishankar Nerkar and Bhumeshwar Gondole, farmers of Bhandara district, say there is only 2 hours of electricity, that too from 11 to 1 p.m. They ask, how do you farm in such a situation?
4 एकर शेती आहे, 2 एकराला ऊस, 2 एकराला धान आहे, दोन्हीकडे वॉटर पंप आहेत आणि शासनाच्या चुकीमुळे किंवा शासन आमची फसवणूक करत आहे. कारण की आम्हाला जे 8 तास लोड शेडिंग होती आणि शासनाने या मागच्या आर्थिक बजेटमध्ये सांगितले होते की 10 तास 8 तास वाढवून आम्ही 8 तासच्या जागी 10 तास करू. ते 8 तासही नाही आणि ते आता देत आहेत 2 तास. रात्रीला 11 वाजताला लाईट येते, 1 वाजताला जाते. आम्ही 2 एकराला किंवा 4 एकराला कसं पाणी वागवू, कसं शेती पिकवू?
माझ्याकडे 6 एकर शेती आहे, धान आहे, ऊस आहे, कारली, वांगे, मिरची, भाजीपाला इतर आहे.
काय त्रास आहे?
आमच्या इकडे आता 24 तासातून फक्त 2 तास लाईट मिळते, बाकीचे पूर्ण लोड शेडिंग करून आले. त्याच्यामुळे पाणी होतच नाही शेतीला. पाणी आम्ही कसं वागवायचं याचा खूप मोठा प्रश्न निर्माण झाला आमच्यासमोर. वरून आदेश आहे म्हणतात का लोड शेडिंग पॉवर हाऊसला वीज कमी असल्यामुळे आम्ही लोड शेडिंग करत आहोत. आम्ही त्यांना विचारलं, म्हणलं आमच्या शेतीकडेच का, बाकीच्या गोष्टीकडे तुम्ही का कमी नाही करत? त्यांना शक्य नाही म्हणतात.
Farmers from Amravati say their orange cultivation has been ruined by the scorching heat. Praveen Jumle, a farmer, says where 2,000 to 3,000 oranges used to grow, only 200 to 300 are now visible. Suffering losses, they are still demanding compensation from the government.
संत्राची बाग आहे 5 एकरमध्ये. खर्च लागला आहे एकरी 1 लाख रुपये. खर्चही निघू शकत नाही कारण 50,000 रुपये खर्च लागून गेला आहे आतापर्यंत एकरी. आणि यामध्ये उत्पन्न एकरी 3 ते 4 लाख रुपये मिळते. पण यावर्षी गड झाल्यामुळं ते मुश्किल आहे.
का बरं गड झाली? काय झालं नेमकं?
उष्णतेची लाट आल्यामुळं, टेम्परेचर खूप असल्यामुळं.
किती होतं
टेम्परेचर? 45-44 डिग्री होतं.
बढ़ती धूप के कारण संतरे की फसल की जो फलों की गलन हो रही है, मतलब ड्राफ्टिंग हो रहा है, इसकी वजह से संतरे का पूरा नुकसान हो चुका है.
Vidarbha has had no respite in May after experiencing intense heat waves in March and April. The coal crisis and resultant load shedding has made things worse for farmers who are facing a big challenge in saving their crops. With Pooja Bhardwaj in Mumbai, this is Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.
And after Rahul Gandhi, it's Amit Shah in battleground Telangana. Mr. Shah visited Telangana amidst a bitter war of words between the leaders of the TRS and the BJP over alleged discrimination against the state, which began last year over paddy procurement. The BJP unit in the state is all fired up after its win in the by-polls for the Hazurabad and the Dubaka assembly seats, as well as its performance in the Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation polls.
मेरे जीवन में इतनी निकम्मी और भ्रष्टाचारी सरकार मैंने मेरे जीवन में नहीं देखी है मित्रों. मगर ये टीआरएस की गाड़ी का स्टीयरिंग ओवैसी के हाथ में है. तेलंगाना की रचना के वक्त उन्होंने वादा किया था, निल्लू निधुलू नियमकालू. कुछ पूरा हुआ है क्या?
And in the international news, it's been a stupendous fall from grace for a family that once appeared to run most aspects of life in Sri Lanka. As the island nation struggles amidst the worst economic crisis since its independence from Britain in 1948, the Rajapaksa brothers, once seen as heroes, have become villains in Sri Lanka. While the protests against the economic policies forced the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to flee his home, his brother remains in power though. But the chorus for his resignation is only growing louder.
People have common roads and they have certain demands, and We are asking this Rajapaksa family to go home.
We clearly demand the current president should leave and hand over the power to a person who can handle the situation and give the power back to the people.
The tables have turned. Even the Sinhala community that had given sweeping victories to the Rajapaksas demand his resignation today. But Gotabaya remains defiant. The Rajapaksas had a 2/3 majority in the parliament until a month ago. Among the Rajapaksas, Gotabaya is the only Rajapaksa who is holding on to the power today.
They are no longer popular. They are basically on the run. His passport has been impounded. We have never expected that to happen. To have a Rajapaksa who's unable to travel from the country, and the main man himself. So, yeah, things are changing.
One of the prominent families in the political history of Sri Lanka was the Rajapaksas. While many political families hailed from the privileged class, the Rajapaksas originally were the landowners from the rural areas of Hambantota. The Rajapaksas' rule began in 1936, where Mahinda Rajapaksa's ancestors have held posts in the regional councils. Of all the 4 Rajapaksa brothers, Chamal, Mahinda, Basil and Gotabaya, the second son, Mahinda, was introduced to politics in 1970 at the age of 24 after his father died.
There were some very, very poor decisions taken, especially in 2019 in December, soon after the president was elected, tax cuts which really wiped out the revenue earning potential of the state to repay our debts. Without any plan on how the enormous amount of debt which Sri Lanka owes is going to be paid back. And when you ban agriculture overnight is where we saw actually the very first start of this struggle and the fall from grace of the Rajapaksa family was with that key decision.
It was Mahinda who catapulted the Rajapaksas to national dominance after winning the presidential elections in 2005 against the deadliest militant group LTTE. Mahinda assumed the role of a mass leader and was hailed as a war hero for defeating one of the world's most dangerous militant groups, the LTTE, under his regime as the president of Sri Lanka. This was the time when Gotabaya made an entry into politics. A former army officer in 1998, Gotabaya had left Sri Lanka and immigrated to the US, only to return to Sri Lanka in 2005 and assisted his brother Mahinda in his presidential election campaign and was elected as the defense secretary during his administration. During the civil war, the Rajapaksas had ordered shoot at sight in 2009. And as alleged by political analysts in Sri Lanka, the style of functioning to ordering shoot at sight in the last few days, little seems to have changed since the civil war. Despite the allegations of mysterious disappearances of hundreds of people, human rights violations in Sri Lanka during the Rajapaksas regime, the Rajapaksas have taken turns and have emerged stronger every elections. And this is because they have been all this while riding high on the Sinhalese supremacy, which the Rajapaksa family have used racism as to the best and divide among the Sinhala and the minority communities such as Tamils and Christians.
Indeed it is, and nobody would have expected the Rajapaksas to fall out of grace so fast. And what is more surprising is the delusional attitude of the president himself, appearing to think that if he sends his brother home, that he could survive in office. But now the cacophony of sound from the protesters have increased, asking him to quit.
Riding high on the Sinhalese nationalism, Mahinda misused his office to fulfill his family's political fortunes and inducted all his brothers and cousins into his government, only to bring the country of 22 million people to a standstill today.
The Rajpakshas from the Sinhala heartland never would have imagined that their support would be reduced to this, also forcing Mahinda Rajpaksha to flee from his home. Though Gotabaya Rajpaksha remains defiant and he is still in power, the chorus only grows louder. In Colombo, with camera person Govind Murthy, Shrija for NDTV.